Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play set in the Eberron campaign world. It's Friday, so we have a Q&A episode, and we are joined by Casey for the first time in a while. Welcome back. Shade's been kind of hanging out in the background since we got back from the Feywild, so it's been a bit
Very
since we've had
intentionally.
it's been a bit since we had Shade on. We have a bunch of questions about Shade's activities recently, as well as more generally. But before we get to them, Spartacus had asked the other players, and they've gotten a chance to answer this, but it's been a while since we introduced Nessaria, but Spartacus asked everyone else to share a little bit about their inspiration for their student character, and I wanted to give you a chance to do that too. So where does Nessaria come from in Casey's mind?
She was based off of a very specific character from Avatar: The Last Airbender. She's originally based off of Toph, who
Okay.
is just one of the absolute best characters in that show, and very confident, know-it-all. The spells that I chose for Nessaria are earth-based spells because Toph is an earthbender, but she definitely has evolved from that. She has much more of a Hermione Granger feel to her.
I had definitely been getting Hermione Granger vibes off of her. But that's partly because I'm reading Harry Potter right now.
Uh, she absolutely reads that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the way I'm playing her ends up. I guess her backstory is more Toph. Toph comes from a really wealthy, overprotective family, and so Nessaria's wealth, her lack of understanding of any other type of culture or class or experience is tied back to sort of Toph's bringing up.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the way I've been playing her absolutely has a Hermione bent to it.
That's something, speaking about her backstory, that's something very interesting. It's very rare for a player to create a character who has a family that is all three alive, well, not lost, and not like hasn't like disowned them. Like characters with living families are relatively common, but it's always like, and my family's disowned me or something. It's Esri situation, or they're lost
Right.
and Ari, or they're dead, like Pogs. And so the having a one of the students come in with a at least presumably functional relationship with her family. We haven't explored that, and so we don't know the details. But that's um that's very interesting. Was that just Toph, or was that something that Casey wanted to have? Because I guess that's also not a first with you. You've done that in the One Ring with some of your characters have had fine relationships with their
That's exactly
families.
what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Most of my characters that I choose do not. They have terrible relationships with their families. They come from very broken homes and very broken backgrounds. And so part of my decision was to sort of mirror Shade's
Mm-hmm.
experiences. Like I'm playing with the heavy traumatic background of Shade, and for a student wanted to play something a little bit more lighthearted. And so having a family that supports her and knows about her mark and accepts her for that, I just thought would be to play the opposites.
Yeah.
Shade obviously was rejected several times because of her mark. What would that look like if you have a family who accepts it and loves you and supports you? And then one of my most recent The One Ring characters, Daisy the Hobbit, is a very loving, supportive family. It became a running joke in the campaign that her parents kept sending letters to everyone across Middle Earth to find out how she was doing and how her adventures were going. And honestly, it was so much fun. Like, I was worried that it would be boring to have a character with a, you know, fairly well-adjusted family and background. But it actually ended up being a really fun part of the interactions in the campaign. And so I just wanted to do that again.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that dynamic in our One Ring game as well, and I'm very interested to explore Nessaria's family at some point when we have a chance, because it's very interesting that we've got a family that's totally fine with their daughter's aberrant mark. It's also very interesting that we've got this family of drow who are not part of one of these cultures that we've encountered, and it's very interesting that we have a well-off student, which we don't have anywhere else in our story, really. The only person with money seems to be Tehora. So it is it's very,
who was a much better person than Nessaria.
Well, Nessaria is young. She's learning. I really enjoyed the interaction between Nessaria and Tehora a couple of episodes back in the aftermath of sneaking into Esri's room. I enjoyed that interaction with Tehora as school admin a lot.
I do too. That was fun, and it was very fun to play off of Kara too.
Yeah. Yes. The contrast between those two characters.
It was also fun. I was talking to RA about this afterwards. It was also kind of hard to play Nessaria being so suspicious of Esri, because RA is my husband. Right. Like, obviously, I don't think he's a terrible predatory creep. And so in that scene in which she was like, not leaving you alone with an adult, it was a little bit difficult to be quite so suspicious and hard on Esri.
But a good institutional policy.
Right. Mom said.
Right. I can absolutely see that being all of the things that all of the motherly advice that Nessaria has received about life in Stormreach.
Yep.
I'm interested. Yeah, I'm interested in exploring the kid characters a lot. That's a lot of fun, and it's slightly difficult for me as the person who's kind of guiding the directions of the story, to toe the line of, let's explore these new characters that we've met that aren't NPCs, but also let's tell the story of the main characters too, because that's, they're the main characters.
Right. Oh. But the side ones are really fun too.
They are. Okay, so we had a bunch of questions for this week. Emily.
Awesome.
Asks, does Shade ever still use her old shifted form, the one that wasn't an anthropomorphic fox, or does she skip over that now to take on her fully anthropomorphic fox Kitsune form?
I have been playing her where if she's shifting to fox, she's just going into the full fox form. Mechanically, it would be really advantageous if I would remember to shift into my shifter form. Mechanically, it gives me advantage on several rolls that Shade tends to roll quite often.
Yeah.
But she just wouldn't. A fox can blend in so well. And so that's what she would choose if she's going to go around town. She would much prefer to just go into a fox form and be ignored. Dream come true.
You mean like little actual fox? I think Emily's
little actual fox. Yes.
In just her daily life, does Shade stay fox person with a tail, or does Shade ever go back into her woman with fox ears appearance?
Got it. Oh, sorry for misunderstanding that in the first place. She is trying it out. So she is trying to stay in fox form, in her fey fox form, more often because she's kind of testing, do I feel more comfortable in this or not?
Hmm. That's interesting.
I think in her shifter form and in the woman with ears form, um that worked well when she didn't have other options because she could put on a hood and blend in. um but having the other option to turn into a fox, so she's probably staying in her kitsune form, um to feel it out. Is this a costume that I'm wearing, or does this feel more like my genuine self?
Cool. Uh, Emily also asks, does Shade have a favorite student? And if she does, or does she make it known that they are her favorite?
I don't think she has a favorite yet. I think that she is very slow to warm up to people that she doesn't immediately identify with. So I say that
Mhm.
because she warmed up to River very quickly, but I think she saw a lot of her struggles and experiences in River. I think with the kids, Kara is probably inching to the front of the line. Um, she doesn't ask a lot of questions, she doesn't interrupt a ton, and she seems to be more adaptable than the others.
Mhm.
Um, and I think Shade sees, she seems to be the least surprised when Shade surprises them with the classes. Um, but I mean, it took her years and years to even consider Pog, Esri, and Ari friends.
Yeah.
So having a favorite is probably quite a ways off. And she doesn't let them know that Kara is the most impressed, but she definitely lets it known when she's mad at other students that who
Right.
aren't doing what she has asked them to do well.
Shade believes in negative reinforcement.
Absolutely. Yeah.
uh,
And not everything that would make sense. So like
right.
Nessaria asks a lot of questions and Shade highly dissuades that. Just do what I've asked you to.
Yeah, just do it. What are you talking
Right.
about? Does Nessaria have a favorite class, or perhaps subject? We haven't really explored the full range of what classes they're taking, but does Nessaria have a favorite academic subject?
It wouldn't be subject. She prefers Professor Arlo.
Okay.
Um, he is the only one that seems qualified to be teaching students, in terms of pedagogy and in terms of knowledge of subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
She she definitely does not perceive the other, particularly Shade or Pog, as quality educators. And she is there for a good education.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
So whatever Arlo teaches is her favorite class.
As a history teacher, I think a changeling history teacher sounds really wonderful because you could just like transform into, you could just go in as Cyrus the Great or something like that. Just,
That would be amazing.
right. And then
You
Emily
should
asked,
start getting costumes for your
I
classes.
know, right? Just get a little costume. We did a little costume closet at school.
Yes.
um, and lastly, Emily asks, does Shade still have her mark when she is fully a fox? Or is she just indistinguishable from a normal fox? So we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, before we hit record, because it's not something we've gotten a chance to explore on stream. So go for it.
Yes. So what was decided about 20 minutes ago is that when she shifts into her full fox form, she does have the red discoloration on her shoulder where her mark would be, and it is in the pattern of the mark. So if you look closely, you can see that the shades of red form a pattern, but unless you know, stopped and stared, she is shades of white and red.
Yeah.
Because they're not shades of white, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. We have some questions from Nathan. Nathan wants to know, what's the in-character thinking behind Shade's more recent tendency to make sure everyone knows how strong she/the party is?
I will try to answer this concisely, but I may not succeed. So pre-apologies. Shade is seeking power. She wants, and she doesn't know what that means necessarily. She knows that power could protect her, and she knows that people with power get to decide the fate of others, and people without power are just you know, their lives are at the whim of the powerful. And almost never in Shade's life has she felt powerful. And so she has decided that she will seek to become more powerful. And in her mind, because she is not good with people and understanding how relationships work, that is brute strength. So displaying what you are physically capable of. I guess I mean that in terms of also, you know, she's a good shot, she's sneaky, and then also having powerful friends. And so Shade's desire to publicly display their strengths and abilities is so that, one, people will recognize how powerful they are, and maybe fear them, but also recognize that they have something to offer. So maybe come to them for assistance. And two, it'll associate, if she can get Grimalkin Academy or the House of Tarkanan, if we can build that up into a powerful entity, and she's a part of that, then that will protect her. And she thinks she's doing a favor to her friends if she can become more powerful and associate them with more power, that it will protect them as well.
Because they'll have powerful friends.
Right. Exactly. So that is her thinking in the public displays of destruction and violence.
That's cool. I'm curious, how does that, because a little while ago we had the I say a little while ago, several episodes back now, but in the conversation about whether or not to go with Dane on the job, Esri really took the lead on the, we need to say no to this because Thora. But Dane, at least vocally, is much more about displays of power, so that people will not mess with people with aberrant marks. Do you think that, absent Esri's nudge in the direction of not doing it, do you think Shade would be more inclined to do it, to go with Dane and help out there?
Outside of the relationship she has with Thora and Esri, Pog, and Ari, absolutely. That perspective much more aligns with her shifting worldview. It appeals to her. She understands the logic in that. Absolutely, she would be a part of his crew. The only thing stopping her is she is super loyal to a fault, and Thora has earned her loyalty. And so if Thora says it's not a good idea, then Shade doesn't question it. That's what Thora said. So Thora must be right. Thora has protected us so far. And every time we've gotten ourselves, injured or something bad has happened, Thora warned us against it. And so Thora must know what she's doing. And then obviously Esri was against it, and Shade feels like she owes Ari and Esri her life because of what had happened on Shade's journey into the Feywild. She views that as a complete failure.
Oh, okay.
She finally stepped out of her comfort zone and asked her friends for help on something that only served her, and she completely betrayed Ari by forgetting him. She feels the weight of the world and guilt on her shoulders for that. And because of it, he is now in a new contract that puts the memory of them at risk. And Esri lost his life. And nobody was in danger. There was no Fae to be rescued. And so whatever Ari and Esri want, pursue, are interested in, Shade will follow without question and support without question. She feels so indebted to them because of it.
Cool. That's very interesting. That relates to Nathan's other question here. Has Shade made any progress in deciding how she wants to respond to her newly discovered background regarding her people, Shaytirius, Talai, and Harazi? So Shade obviously, as you say, feels that the mission was in a sense a catastrophe. Does that change how she feels about what she learned, or is it just that she feels she made a bad choice in asking for help, or maybe in taking her friends along on the ride, as it were?
She's mostly shoved any questions she has and any processing she needs to do about what she's found out about herself completely to the side. She is intrigued. She's absolutely interested in finding out more about all of that. Shaytirios Talai, Harazi, what it means to be Kitsune. She is fascinated and intrigued by finding other Kitsune to find out what that means, what that's like. But she has no mental capacity to pursue that because of the guilt and the debt that she feels she owes Ari and Esri. She will not take personal time to go ask questions about that right now. She might in the future, but at this moment, she wouldn't leave her friends to go find out more information, and she definitely won't ask them to go back with her to find out more.
Interesting. All right. And then less heavily, how involved is Cal in Shade's class?
As involved as you imagine a cat would be. He absolutely attends the classes. And they are almost always in the grove, and so he is almost always up in the tree making snide remarks in Sylvan about the students' abilities. But he also recognizes that he is a beautiful cat, and so he does not mind
Sure.
the attention that he gets from the students that attend the classes.
That's good. I like that. Laura would like to know if Shade had to live in our world. I appreciate had to because it's fairly obvious that Shade would never want to live in our world. If Shade had to live in our world, what would her job be? What kind of job would Shade get in order to pay the bills?
I, The impression that I got when I first read this question is like a fishing guide. Like she's going to absolutely live up in a mountainous, forested area. She understands that she has to make money to survive. So it would be something like a hiking
Hmm.
guide or a fishing guide. Small groups of people, because that's her preference. But in the wild, and she's the one that has the information and knows the information and gets paid to be in the forest. I toyed with like an archaeologist, but she has no respect for history. Like,
I thought forestry service, because then she could write citations for people mistreating the forest.
oh, oh, I like that. I was thinking national parks would just be too
Yeah.
many people
Yeah.
at once, but ooh, yes, she would very much like to write citations for people who are
Right.
mistreating
Stay on the
nature.
path.
Right.
Laura asks, is Shade feeling the awkwardness of the polarka tension? Does she even hang out with Solarka lately, or is she too busy doing things around the manor?
I This is a great question, and I'm not sure. I don't think that she is aware enough to really feel the Polarka tension, not attention, but tension very much. She's a little self-absorbed in her own pity party at the moment. And so what she does feel is Solarka is mad at Pog for Pog not telling him about his adventures. So Solarka must also be mad at her for the same. Um, and so when we have gone to go visit Solarka, Shade has not said much, and it's because she is projecting that relationship. She doesn't quite understand the nuance of they are
Mm-hmm.
dating and we are just friends. And so there's a different level of expected communication. But so Shade is like, well, I did the same thing. She must be mad at me too.
I just want to
Fairly.
parent Shade. I just want to parent Shade and just. I know.
She's never had one. She
um and then Laura asks, and I'm very interested in this question, especially from the conversation with Dane in the last episode. How does Shade feel about the group killing Callan? Because this was a question that came up a while back about the Stormhammers and Tommel, and we had a kind of a divide in the group about whether or not violence was an answer to the problem there. Um, what is Shade's feeling on, um, admittedly not knowing who it was in the moment, but having killed someone else with an aberrant mark, someone else who went through Blackwheel?
Jade is
Sure.
obviously not the moral character in this story. Um, and so in her mind, we did not kill him because
Right.
he was aberrant, and that's the distinction. So violence to her is absolutely a viable option
It's
to
the
solve
best
the
way to
problem.
demonstrate family.
Um, her exactly her her biggest hesitance or even in second guessing the killing is
Mm-hmm.
just the lack of information. The big beefy boys brought up a lot of questions, and this guy had some answers. But other than that, um, he wasn't killed because of his aberrant mark, and so in her mind, that's an
Yeah.
excusable
Well, he. I mean, he was.
murder. Ugh.
Well, he endangered Shade's family, right? I mean, there's yeah,
Right.
cool.
Ari pursued him, which means
Yeah,
Shade will pursue him.
yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, I want to say from a GM perspective, I'm not necessarily trying to make the players feel bad for killing Callan. I don't want them to feel bad. He was dangerous. He was threatening them. You know, it was the reaction of Dane's group was very much based in something that's very hardwired into Dane's character. But yeah. And then Mia has yeah.
As a
No, no,
player, I hate the
yes.
missing information. Like that's someone who could provide a lot of answers to a lot of questions, ongoing questions, brand new questions. And so as a player, him dying, oof, that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely is some of that. And you guys are just not quite at a level where you get access to some of the magic you could use to get information more reliably than asking a corpse, which is only reliable insofar as the corpse is motivated to tell you what you ask. But yeah, so that's yeah, I totally understand that. Don't know how we're gonna find this out now. Yeah. Mia asks, has Shade talked to Cal about her new foxier form, and if so, how does Cal feel about it?
I love this question because I love the image of Cal seeing Shade in her Kitsune form. And I think Cal's reaction to that is, finally, this has been you the whole time. Cal has known she was Fae. I mean, even when you first introduced Cal in the eco-terrorist episode, where Shade broke him out of jail, he makes that comment. I don't exactly remember, but he made a comment of like, "Aren't we the same?" or "From the same place," and so he has absolutely dropped hints implying he knows what she is. And so yes, he wasn't surprised. He is glad that she's in that form, and
Cal's
very
a very supportive friend, as animals usually are.
Yes.
And Mia's other question: now that Shade knows she has Kitsune kin, does she think about them as part of her family unit, i.e., people she would kill to protect, as well?
She does not. She that has to be earned, and she has questions. She's intrigued by them, but she does not consider them them family or friends.
That makes sense.
So she's got a hard outer shell.
Yes. Very cool. Well, that is all of our questions. Thank you guys so much for the questions. This is always fun to have these conversations, and we get such interesting, deep questions about character motivations and things, and it's always fun to have the opportunity to talk about that a little bit and expand on things that maybe that we don't get time to deal with in the midst of an episode or of an actual session. So thank you all so much for that. If you'd like to submit questions, you can do so on our Discord or in any of our social media, which you can find links to in the description to this video. You can also put them in comments on this video or any of our other recent videos. I always go back and check before we record. You can get in touch with us at any of that social media down there. You'll also find a link to our merch store down in the description. New episodes of Khyber Shards drop every Monday. New Khyber Shards answers every Friday. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.